Welcome to Retirement Rescue Radio, a show specifically designed to help retirees and pre-retirees maximize their financial efficiency so you can live the retirement lifestyle you've always imagined. Your host is Nate Miller, investment advisor representative and author of the CPR Retirement Rescue Roadmap. Nate discusses thoughts and ideas from some of today's most knowledgeable professionals in the field of finance. He offers strategies along the way to help you make better financial decisions so you can maximize your retirement. This is Retirement Rescue Radio.
Well, hey there, Retirement Rescue Radio listeners. Today, I've got Dr. Glen Robison on with us and give you a little bit of background on Dr. Glen here. He's the author of Healthy Dad, Sick Dad. What good is your wealth if you don't have your health? In this book, he shares a story of two fathers who experience a very different retirement and how he has improved his own health along the way as a result. And in a world where retirees are taking as many as 20 medications or more a day for preventable health conditions, and they're still missing out on opportunities because they're still too stiff or sore to enjoy life, Glen's research literally has the ability to save lives. In our conversation, Glen and I talk about the personal health crisis that has changed his life and his outlook, his personal mission to change how people take care of themselves and simplify lifestyle changes that can bring our bodies into balance and help us enjoy life at every stage. And lastly, if you'd like a copy of this book, simply leave us an honest review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Copy and paste that into an email to asknate@retirementrescueradio.com. Include your username, iTunes username, and the address of where we can send the book, and we'll get that sent right out to you. And we'll just keep sending them out until they are gone. So without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Glen Robison. All right, Retirement Rescue Radio listeners, I'm your host, Nate Miller, and we have a very special episode today. I've got Dr. Glen Robison with me. Dr. Glen, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, thanks for taking some time to be here. And I always, first off, are you ready to help rescue some retirements?
Absolutely.
Well, great, great. Now, I just went through an introduction of you with a lot of information that we can honestly find out on the web, but I always like to ask this question to help my listeners kind of understand a little bit more about you or get to know you more on a human level. Is there anything interesting or unique about you that maybe we just can't find readily available out there on the net?
Oh, there's so much. My life's been a journey. So, I could tell you about the 18,000 trees I planted up in the Yellowstone area, or I could tell you about I've dissected everything in the human body except for the eardrum. But I think the one that stands out the most was when I was a junior in high school. I was told I'd never make it into college by my high school counselor. And because I got the lowest ACT score in the state of Utah and the 5th lowest in the nation. So I retook it my senior year and I got the same score. And I got a total of 7. So if you know about ACT, that I've never heard anybody go below that cumulative. So I was like as dumb as a brick, that's what I was classified as. Mm-hmm. And I even talked to universities and they laughed at me and said, "Nah, college is not for you." Mm-hmm. So I would have to say, I didn't let that stop me. And it propelled me to go as far as I could. And when I got there, I went a little further and graduated from medical school, mm-hmm. board certified. And so that really set me off with my life journey, was that little experience there that I was told I'd never make it into college.
Wow. So, and that's it. How do you go from a 7 ACT to being a doctor? I think it's Mark Twain has a quote similar to this. I'm probably going to botch it, but it's a little bit about don't let your formal education get in the way of your learning.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you go from that to, graduation?
Well, I just, my saying, and it always was, is that tests are only there to tell you what you ate in the morning. And if I didn't eat anything in the morning, I didn't do well on my tests. I had a lot of text anxiety. In fact, I even, got into medical school and I was struggling at first. And they found out that I memorized everything. And so when I took a book, I memorized it. It was visual and almost like a photographic memory. I could tell you what paragraph the word was and everything.
Yeah.
And it was too much information to take a test. And so by the time I could recount the answer, because the tests were always timed, I ran out of time, but the information was there. So discovery later on. And so then once I discovered that, my first 4.0 came in medical school. So
nice. Yeah, I had a older brother who did not get very good grades in school, like C's and D's all throughout high school. Gets into the Air Force and starts working at something he actually loves, and he's acing everything. And my parents are just incredulous. They're like, "Where did this come from?" Well, it's all about motivation. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, great. So I want to get started off here. You have a very cool name for a book called Healthy Dad, Sick Dad. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. And there's all your thought process behind that. But to start off with, how did you come up with that title?
It was actually I was in Scribe Media. It's a publishing company in Austin, Texas. And there's a group of like 12 of us authors, potential authors. And I was describing my idea for my book, and I was really wanting to call it "Why Die It When You Can Live It?" And I was telling my story with how this man that was introduced to me 18 years ago, at that time, 16 years ago, was teaching me all these dietary things, and it really changed my life. And then how I observed my father and his health. And one guy popped up in the class and said, "Hey, just call it Healthy Dad, Sick Dad." Robert Kiyosaki had that situation on a financial point. I just have this situation on a healthy point. And so I went through all the legal ramifications and actually hired a lawyer and checked into the title of Healthy Dad, Sick Dad, went through all the process. And so actually, I own the title of Healthy Dad, and so it's just will be a platform that I can springboard. So it's stuck. So I thank Robert Kiyosaki for his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a fantastic book. But this is an incredible book too, which just fits right in with the two men that I observed and was able to ask questions.
Yep, very familiar with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think I was 23 or 24 when I asked for nothing but Robert Kiyosaki books for Christmas. That's how much of a financial nerd I was. And I had Rich Dad, Poor Dad read by the end of the day after Christmas.
Oh, man. Well, that's cool.
So yeah, so Robert Kiyosaki's okay with Healthy Dad, Sick Dad. It works. No, you're not.
As far as I know, yeah, he hasn't said anything. So yeah.
Perfect. And I love that title because the contrast there between someone who in your case was your real dad was your sick dad, and in Robert Kiyosaki's case, his poor dad was his real dad as well.
Correct.
And so you had a mentor come alongside you at some point in your life and give you different information that helped out. So there's a saying that goes, it's somewhere along, I'm gonna have like sayings I'm probably going to butcher and attribute to the wrong person, right? But after you say them enough times, you can just say, like I always say, and then it becomes your own quote, I guess. But if you have your money but you don't have your health, you don't have much. And so expound a little bit more on that.
Well, that just kind of goes along with my subtitle, "What good is your wealth if you don't have your health?" And Steve Jobs is quoted to say, and I may not exactly say it the way he said it, but he said, "Look, all this money that I made and this time and energy I put into it, what good was it? And I don't have my health." And we know that he died of his cancer. So he spent his entire life, working to retire and enjoy the lifestyle he envisioned, but he wasn't able to use it, unfortunately. So
yeah, a lot of people, in order to gain wealth, they lose their health, and or if they lose their health, they spend their wealth to get it back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, it's
and we do share a few commonalities. Here you grew up on a farm as well, but you had more siblings than I did.
Right.
8 siblings.
Yeah, there's 9 of us total. I had a little brother, an older brother that passed away. I didn't even get to meet him, but there's 8 of us around the dinner table. It was pretty interesting. Yes.
Nice. Yeah. What's the split between guys and girls, and where do you fall?
There's 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and then I'm number 7.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice. There's 5 boys, 1 girl, and I'm number 3, and she's number 5. So she's not the youngest or anything like that. Yeah. So my dad, of course, being a farmer, and we farmed the farm that our great grandfather originally purchased. So it was like, we had 4 generations now working on that farm. And he was forced to retire because of some health issues. Then I would say, have there been any of your siblings or anybody else in your family that has followed in your footsteps with this healthy lifestyle?
I was going to say no, but up until my oldest brother finally started asking questions, and because he was told he was pre-diabetic, they call it, he was diabetic. And I said, hey, Ken, I go, you just need to get on this diet. I says, I give it to my patients within a month. They pretty much get off their medications. They change their hemoglobin A1C down at least a point. I says, get on it, follow it. It's really simple. And he did. He went back to his blood work and the doctor says, oh, okay, your sugar levels are normal. He's the only one. And, there's a saying, you can't be a prophet in your own hometown. Well, you can't be a doctor in your family. And they see me as the kid that either had asthma his entire life or always wanting to do sports and trying his hardest, or always, doing just, working at the grocery store and things like that. They don't see me as a doctor. So very seldom will they ask me questions. So really the sad irony is that when I watched my father pass away, when I was completing the book, he had just retired to his recliner, 88 years old, and worked his whole life on the farm. And he never got out of the recliner. And so, the heart attacks came. And it just was sad to see. And I talked to him about dietary changes he could actually do. And he never took hold of it. I mean, every once in a while he would say something, but he just was in the lifestyle that he continued to love his sweets and the things, the ice cream at night, and the gout comes at night, and so those things. So now, unfortunately, no, my mom was, I'd have to say the really strong, healthy one. She'd always work in the garden and with the fruits and vegetables, and I always hung around her. I mean, I was always I think I was the only child that hung out with her in the garden. So she did live a really good, healthy life, and I think a lot of that, her cooking and really did a strong basis to me that I eventually came back and went back to after this journey of medical school and everything, when my health went to hell in the handbasket. So
yeah, so talk about that journey a little bit if you could. So you went through your schooling, and then you're trained in Western medicine. You're a podiatrist, and then you kind of move a little bit more to this nutrition focus. So talk about that transition. How'd that come about?
So, when I was in medical school, there was really no time to do a whole lot. So one thing that you compensate on is eating, because you can grab a Costco muffin and a root beer and drink it, and it's 3 minutes there and you go back to studying. Well, I had a body that was strong. I had a body that was physical. I fought fires for 5 years. I overcame my asthma. I just pushed through it as a child, that I had this asthma. And so I would say I was healthy, but the way I was eating on the go, grabbing something here for what I thought was fuel and energy, eventually ended up me in the emergency room with a severe case of kidney stones. And that propelled me to, I think it was a year later, not even a year later, 6 months later, in another emergency room when I went back home to my brother's wedding, and that's where I've seen the other side. I mean, I actually literally died, and with the experience I had, and so I was cautious on what to eat during medical school, but the doctors never really told me what to eat. They just said, okay, drink water. And so I'd have episodes of kidney stones throughout, throughout medical school. And then I went through my residency, got married, and then my back went out, and I was like, oh my heavens, I've gained all this weight, and I just can't stiff. I quit running, I quit doing things, and that's how I got introduced to Healthy Dad. And somebody told me, hey, look, here's a guy that doesn't do surgery and no injections. Go see him. And he was able to fix me up. And I was so intrigued with this part of manipulation he did.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, look, in order for me to really help you, you have to change your diet. You have to. That's the first step. And it took me a while, but I listened to him, and he said it's the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he says, look, you're a ticking time bomb waiting to happen, you're ready to have a heart attack, he says you need to change. Then I didn't take it serious, to be honest with you, until my little girl stopped eating. And you can read in the book that she must have fell, and I was having pain every time she ate.
Mm-hmm.
And I took her to everything I knew, pediatricians, emergency room, everything, to see what was going on. And then I called up this Healthy Dad, my mentor, and said, hey, look, this is what's happening with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Could you help her? And I brought her down there. I think she was, I don't even know how, 2 or 3 years old, 4 years old. And he put her on the table, and he did this little maneuver, and I'm sitting there, and I heard this little pop, 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 and then gurgle sounds. And she jumped up and says, Dad, I'm hungry. And that was the changing point for me. It wasn't my health. It wasn't my back that went out. It was her. And I says, whatever you did for her, I need to learn it. Mm-hmm. He says, well, I've been basically telling you, don't lie, and you'll change your diet. But he says, yes. And so I've been on this journey for 18 years, learning nutrition. And then there's other things that I've learned, but that will come in other books down the road. And if I say it on here, then it opens up a can of worms, and we just discussed that. So anyhow, it's been a fun journey, but that's what really happened. So I changed my diet, changed how I ate, how I look at things, how I do things. And right now I'm still medication free, mm-hmm. Still biking, still running, still swimming, doing the fun things I want to do.
And so was there not any nutrition training when you were going through for your doctorate?
No, none.
Really?
No, I can't think of anything. No, I mean, the 4,000 hours that you sit in class, and no, there was, not to my knowledge, that I can come in biochemistry, biology, pharmacology. No, I can't recall mm-hmm. a class that we sat down and they said, here's the foods for a dietitian, dietary for medical school. Crazy, huh?
Yeah. And this just might be speculation, but why do you think that is?
Well, this may get me in trouble, but Western medicine is what you call petroleum medicine. We're based on medicine that came originally from John D. Rockefeller in the early 1900s, that was petroleum based. And so a lot of our medicine comes from petroleum. And if you do the research in history, and so these medicines that we develop and everything, it's big money making for these pharmaceutical companies and everything. And so, if people are healthy, are they going to go to the doctor? No. Now, surgeons, I mean, I think that Western medicine stands far best than anybody. And we need it. We need those surgeons to put us together in car accidents and things like that. They do incredible work. But I think that as far as, the common cold and the flu and the diabetes and the heart condition, all these things could be pretty easily managed if we just ate proper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say a somewhat similar story, not with myself, but my wife. At the beginning of 2020, even before the pandemic really started, she started developing a lot of dietary issues. She would be nauseous all the time, and it seemed to be random. And so we were having her get checked out. We're having MRIs. We're having a look at her gallbladder. We're checking about everything that we can. And it's coming up, not really anything at all is out of the ordinary. There was a little bit of, I think, stool in her large intestine, but we got that better, but it's still, nothing was improving. And so we went to someone who was able to give us a food sensitivity test and found out a lot of the different things that she was allergic to, like dairy, gluten, almonds, cashews, ginger, seafood. I mean, it's like there was so many things. And then as soon as she realized that and changed her diet, she was able to be, well, somewhat normal. She still has every issue every now and then, but for the most part, the night and day difference between before she knew and after she knew, it was almost like that. In that instance, Western medicine had kind of failed us until we found the nutrition side of things.
Right. And I would say, she really needs to read chapter 7 in the book. I think it's called Chemistry is an Assault on Biology.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she will be reading your book.
And what happens is that the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, especially the food, has a lot of Roundup in it. And we don't, for some people that have a really strong constitution, really doesn't affect, but over time they start to have IV problems. And so when you change your diet, in actuality, you're actually cleaning your liver, and a lot of allergies come from that toxicity within the liver. And so you clean that liver, you help that liver, you do everything for that liver. And a lot of times the allergies start to go down. You don't have them.
Okay. So she needs some big detox.
Well, not a big one. I would say in my book, I talk about a daily detox. One is that it's safe. And instead of like chelations, which is really hard on the kidneys, it's a daily detox, and it has just like spirulina, green blue algae, red marine algae, sodium alginate, psyllium, apopectin, green vibrance, and I mix it all together. And I take a teaspoon, I put in water along with concentrates, and I drink that every morning. That's my morning drink. And so it binds all the toxins out of your body that you've collected over the years. And little bit by little bit, it detoxifies you without any major problems, and it keeps your bowels regular. It just keeps you going, and it's probably one of the most healthiest things you can drink in the morning. Now, I don't sell the product or anything like that, not yet, but
that'll be in the next
I'm
book,
just yeah, right. But the information's there, and my goal is to get people out there to say, hey, look. And I've got patients that they're saying, okay, where do I buy this? What do I do? And they're already starting to do it. And it's amazing taking these 80-year-olds that are changing their diet right now and saying, man, I'm going for walks. I used to, not be able to do this. And thank you. This has been fantastic. And so my biggest cheering section right now on this book is the 70, 80, 90-year-olds. I got a 107-year-old that has read my book, and she lives that book basically in her life. That's why she's 107. She just stopped driving about 3 years ago, but incredible lady. She lived through the 2 pandemics, the Spanish and now this one. So, so yeah.
She needs to get interviewed on the difference between then and now, especially with the technology that we've got now and how that's affected the pandemic.
Oh, I'd love to introduce you to her. She's just a fireball. She's just Anita. She came to me. I've been treating her, and then she got bit by a brown recluse spider bite, and I had been seeing another doctor, and they go, wait a minute, Dr. Robison had been seeing her, and she wasn't getting any better, and she thought she's going to lose her leg. And she loved working her garden, and she just says, I have to go see him. So she came and seen me, and so there's a few things I do differently, and it was able to save her leg and from the toxicity and the infection, so she's still out there in the garden. I have to tell her, no more step stools, quit falling off those,
don't get up on the ladder. Right.
So her goal is to live past her driver's license, which is 2025. So I gotta keep her going. So yeah.
That's amazing. So my great grandmother lived to be 103 years old, and her older sister attended her funeral. She made it to 110.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
so I'm always telling people, yeah, I'm probably going to live to be 100 or something. So I'm as much figuring out this financial thing for myself, and I gotta keep, exercising as well to make sure that I'm strong, into my hundreds or whatever it is. And so since I just brought that up, so we've been talking a lot about nutrition. Is there any type of an exercise component to what you teach as well, or is one more important than the other, or how does that work?
Well, movement is life, so you have to move. The one thing I did observe from my father when he retired, he didn't get out of his recliner, and so I would highly recommend even those that are still working right now and moving towards the retirement age, or those that are retired, you got to move. You got to keep going. Find an activity that doesn't put strain on these aches and pains in your body. If you have shoulder pain right now, if you can swim, do the backstroke. It's one of the best things to set your shoulders back in. Go for a walk, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, get that heart rate up. Even bicycling is really important. Now, if you can't run, which I still have some older patients that run, do the cadence run. I mean, it's less less strenuous on the knees, but it's very very good. And I have my rule of thumb for me is that I stop eating after 7, and then I'll go exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And except for swimming, I wait a little bit longer so I don't get the cramping and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what this does, it does one thing. One is that if I had a big meal, it usually keeps me at my body weight that day.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm wanting to lose a little bit, I will lose a little bit more curtailed to what I'm eating if I have a lighter dinner. But the other factor on this, which goes with the exercise, is that your liver, I talked a little bit about the liver, your liver has a time frame when it really goes into effect, and it goes into effect from 1 to 3 a.m. So the sooner you stop eating at night, the liver has its best optimal energy and level to break down everything you ate that day. So if you're eating at 10, 11 o'clock at night, well, that liver is going to be kicking in here at 1 to 3. It's going to have a really strenuous time breaking all that stuff down. And then you get, the next morning comes around, you're sluggish, and it just kind of backs you up for many cycles. And so stop eating after 7, or if you're diabetic, you have to curtail that too. So you have to adjust that. But no, you have to exercise. It's good for the brain, good for the mind, good for the body, and movement is life. So
Definitely. And so actually, gosh, this would have been back in 2018, or I can't even remember when I started doing intermittent fasting. Or as I found out later, I was basically just doing the time restricted eating. I would stop at 8 and I would start again at noon. So I was doing the 16-8 time frame and I wouldn't necessarily restrict what I ate. It was the time frame. So I wasn't no carbs, or I wasn't, keto or anything like that. It was just the time delayed. Now I tend to eat a pretty high protein diet anyway, because I do also work out. But yeah, it wasn't quite 7 o'clock. It was 8 o'clock. And now though, I'm trying to put weight back on, so I don't find myself doing that as often. And sometimes it might be 9 o'clock or.
I mean, you have those days, but just that's been my rule of thumb. I mean, it may vary with other people, but just know wherever you're part of the United States or in the world that your listeners are listening to, calculate, because 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock is the same as your 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in Chicago or Kansas, wherever you're at, is the same as New York's on your time frame.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why when you travel, you have to get back, into that time frame travel. Like if you go back to Italy or something, you have to adjust for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a interesting thought and kind of crazy, but it's not where you were born with, where you your birth chart, where you were that, but it's you just follow the clock around the world. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, so then do you still find yourself still having some type of, I guess, health challenges at all today, still today?
I have my aches and pains from the stupid things I've done, and sports injuries and, lifting a 600-pound chair and things like that. But was my back. But, I would say probably the mainest thing that I have is probably the damage I had when I had that anaphylactic reaction in medical school. So my kidneys have issues. And so sometimes I will have a gout attack, which is new to me. So I have to really watch what I eat, staying away from high fructose corn syrup, which I do, but the red meats, I don't drink alcohol. So these are things. And I think gout is really propelled by this corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup. And then emotions too. If somebody gets really, it can trigger that. So I would say that one, but it's very seldom. So as long as I'm eating balanced and eating, what my body's telling me, I stay pretty healthy.
Yeah. Okay. And I ask that because, in your book, you say that in nature, when you're balanced, there really is no disease. And so can we really stay balanced to the point that we don't have the diseases like the heart attacks or the diabetes and stuff like that?
I believe you can. Absolutely. I do. All depending on your nature, your constitution as a child and bringing up, or where you've been, how you've ate. But, let me just take, for instance, like diabetes is, pretty much all type 2 diabetes is what you've been eating, your life. And so the other factor too is there's emotional part of that. And with diabetics, they tend to grieve, they tend to worry, they tend to not, the main factor is they don't love themselves. And so if they could really truly see them as an individual and try to love themselves, that changes the whole world. And what was fascinating about this concept, I'm telling you, is I was talking to a patient. I says, I probably will never recoup the money I put into this book, the time and the money and everything. And she says, no, maybe you won't, but I can tell you right now, you changed 3 generations. You changed my diabetes. My daughter was diabetic. She started reading your book, and her diabetes is even better. And even on the emotional part, she's loving herself, and we're having the best communication now. And her 2-year-old daughter is not wanting the candies. She's wanting an apple. So you've changed 3 generations. And so getting back to your question on balance, I really do. I think that nutrition is the fundamental part of changing how you eat. And the book spells it out. But there's the emotional part too that you have to really take into account. And we could spend hours and days talking about this, that what each kind of various area in your body has an energy. And for instance, the heart has a lot of joy, laughter, ego, things like that. But too much of it can be damaging. The kidney is fear, paranoia, everything going on in the world today. So we are hurting that, basically what I call kidney chi. And what's unique about this inherited kidney chi is we're given 1 cup of it in our entire life. And it's different from the prana chi, which is our lung, and our nutrient chi, which is our stomach. But this kidney chi has 1 cup of water, let's say, and each time you stress, each time you have fearful thoughts or that, you take a drop out. And if you want to see somebody that's at the bottom of the cup, just go to the nursing home. Their kidney chi is pretty much drying up. And so I want to protect that. And it comes from the energy. So I really try to stay present and try to say, okay, I can't be worried about this podcast 3 days ago saying if I'm going to say something wrong or something. No, I just, okay, I have to be here. But it's just, so there's a lot of it. And I go into the book on that, and it's pretty an eye opener to a lot of people. So.
I just operate under the assumption that I'm going to say something wrong, and I'll just try to fix it. That's how it works. And so, okay, balance. So is there a way? I think you mentioned that the book might talk about it. So, is there a way to check to make sure that we are in balance?
Yeah, and what I do is it's called the YinYang Duality. In just basic terms, it's just our body is either weak or tired, strong, cold or hot. It's yin or yang. The book, if you look at the which is really unique. If you look at this book, you'll see that an apple has a blue and a red.
Yep, yin yang. Yeah.
Blue is yin, red is yang. And so one thing I do is first thing in the morning, I say, man, I'm cold, so I'm going to eat something warm, or I'm hot, I'm going to eat something cold. And so we want our body temperature to be about 98.6. That's where the optimal level to grow that good normal bacteria in your intestinal lining.
Mm-hmm.
If it falls below that, like about 97, 96, then you're not able to grow the good bacteria. And there's 7 other factors, but with time, I won't go into those, but you can look into the book. But there are 8 optimal factors that help to grow that good bacteria. So it protects your immune system. So that's what I listen to that throughout the day. So if I'm like in the summertime here in Arizona, I'm not going to grab a steak or a hamburger. More than likely, I just don't eat meat during the summer, because 115 degree weather, and you go back home, you're groggy, you're just angry, you're just, man, because all this heavy food in you. So I love grapefruit, and I'll have watermelon, I'll have, really good salad. I may, if I want something protein, I'll have a good salmon. But so I just listen to how I feel. The other thing too is look at your urine. That will tell you an awful lot too. If your urine is really clear, you're drinking too much water. But if you're really dark, you're dehydrated and you need to get some fluid into you. So you want it just to have it a nice clear yellow film. Some people say beer-like, but I've never drank a beer. So but
I've drank quite a few. I know what
yeah,
you're
okay.
talking about.
All right, good. So that's the color you want. And so you look at that, and then even you want to get on a deeper level, you look at your stools. Did they float? Did they sink? They're round? Are they solid? Are you constipated? And so you look at your elimination, and it will tell you an awful lot. And you get into a habit of this. And so I set up in the book, I gave out 3 diets. One's a immune diet, another one's a diabetic diet, and the other one's called a whole life diet. Now, I don't like the term diet because I want to live it, but because everybody resonates to diet, we'll keep them as is. But the immune diet,
along those lines, if I could, it's like when I hear the word diet now, this was different long time ago, but since I've learned a little bit more, I look at diet as what is your diet, meaning what do you consume on a normal basis, rather than doing something temporary to achieve something and then getting off of it. I don't look at that as a diet. Now, I think the vast majority of people look at diet as something they do until they reach a goal weight, right?
Right.
But
right.
I like to look at it as kind of, I think what you're thinking there is, this is how I eat. This is my diet, my normal consumption every single day.
This is my lifestyle, how I eat.
Yeah. Yep, lifestyle.
So,
yep.
Yeah. And so what's really, and I'll just, keep it simple. The immune diet is the yin diet. 80% of the population today needs that. Mm-hmm. Once they get strong enough, then I will shift them probably over to the whole life diet, which is the balanced diet, the diet that I do every day. The diabetics in there, because I see so many diabetics, and it's so really easy to treat dietary wise. I mean, the stories I have just from diabetics that just apply that is incredible. I think every diabetic should read that book. In fact, the patient yesterday came into my office. He had already bought, in the previous visit, 5 books to hand out. Well, he wanted 5 more books. He says this book needs to be in every home. Mm-hmm. He says it has changed my life. It has changed other lives, and he just resonated with it. So there are probably 40 different diets that I have, and I'm working on getting those probably on my website to that are really specific and fine-tuned for various elements like celiac and Crohn's and heart, and there's a list of them that I could go into. But for the most part, I put these 3 out. It's probably the most common one that we use. And like you said, it's just how you live that day, that day, that week, that month of what you're eating. So.
And so you were trained, basically, I would say, if we want to delineate between Western medicine and nutrition. So you were trained basically in the Western medicine, no nutrition whatsoever. But now you've kind of transitioned a little bit. So in your medical community, do you ever run up against any type of pushback, or do they look at whatever you're talking about as just, gobbledygook, or doesn't have any basis? Or what do you run up against in your own industry?
Well, I stay isolated from them. No, it's kidding. No, because if I did, there would be some major heavily discussions. And yeah, this gobbledygook, this white fishtail stuff, this white, whatever you want to call it. It's real. I get it on a daily basis, but it's not a debate with me. I have lived it. I've applied it myself for 18 years. And now my patients, in fact, the reason why I had to write this book was I was having so much success with the patients in my clinic that I wanted to get all the information into something that they could just take home and reference to. But now I've seen that this book has expanded beyond that into podcasts and to people in Japan and China, South America that are buying the book. So we'll see where it goes. But no, it's incredible. So
yeah, and it's surprising to me that there's still a lot of opposition to that, because I mean, I carry no doctor degrees, but I've seen nutrition play a big role even before my wife had the issues, play big roles in people's health. And, there was a saying that I heard one time, and this is, I think, very appropriate for what we're discussing, is that, we don't have a headache because we have a lack of ibuprofen in our body.
Oh, can I use that?
You can absolutely use that. So yeah, we don't have a headache because we have a lack of ibuprofen in our body. There's something else that is deficient that can usually be taken care of by nutrition. And if we get the right nutrition, like you said, it's like we can have balances. People might be able to get rid of migraines, as you talk about diabetics all the time, being able to help out with their nutrition, rather than having to take, so much insulin. You just change diet, change maybe exercise and a few other things, and it can help. It can absolutely help.
And one thing too is that this stuff I'm telling you, it has been around for 5,000 years. It's called empirical knowledge. I mean, it's been, the Oriental medicine, and I can take somebody's pulse and I can see what area of the body is out of alignment. But then I look at their body and say, okay, it's for my specialty. I'm looking at this big bunion on the right side that's staring me in the face. And I go, what's wrong with your left shoulder? They go, what? I never even put that on the paper, but I had a left shoulder injury. And to you listeners out there, look down at your feet. Bunions are opposite shoulders, from your neck to your shoulder, that you somewhere injured, stiff, working at a computer too long. And so what happens is that tightness up in your shoulder draws that bunion, because your body's trying to balance out. I mean, we're all trying to get to balance, whether it's the body or the food or nutrition. And so it's a marker for me, like, okay, I can help that bunion without surgical intervention, but I'm going to have to go up and get those, this upper here loosened up and fixed, because I went through a horrific emotional event a couple of years ago, and because they say it's genetic, bunions are genetic. Well, my mom had bunions, but I always say, well, if your parents have a bunion, you're just as stressful as them. And so when I went through this stressful time, I saw my bunion started to go back. I'm like, no way. So I started doing the principles and applying and the things, and you really can't tell I have a bunion. So just to make that point, that yes, your headache is not due to a deficiency in ibuprofen, but you have to look at the body as a whole. And because it's really not here, maybe it's somewhere else that you have to go and correct in order to get this fixed. So I'm sorry for the long explanation.
Oh no, that's right. I know that's exactly what we're looking for. So I've got a couple of toenails that haven't been right since I climbed a mountain here a few years ago. So they're crooked now, and I always prided myself on having good looking guy feet, because some guys have just ugly looking feet, and but after that, there's a couple toenails now that don't look as well as they used to look. I'll say that. So maybe I'll send you a picture of them. I don't know. That's we're talking here, and everybody else is probably hearing that going, oh, gross.
Well, I can tell you with toenails, which is interesting, if there's any yellowing or any fungus in the toenail, I immediately go to the immune system. I say, okay, if we're really going to tackle this, you don't want to take the medication out there, we have to change it from a dietary point. And that's why people get people on the immune system diet. Boost up your immune system, get the probiotics in there, get rid of the sugars, the bad sugars. And then we start that way. And then eventually with time, my protocol, we can get rid of that fungus. But for a damaged toenail, yeah, send me a picture. I'll look at it and tell you.
Okay. All right. Don't worry, all you listeners, I won't send you the picture of it. Okay. And so what about, are there any medications or anything like that that you're on right now?
No.
No, perfect. Do you have any vitamins, or do you have the same view of vitamins as you do for like medications?
So vitamins, you have to be really careful because the plastic capsules are probably, tainted with non-GMO material. And then, they're man-made. So I try to stick to as real as possible. So there are some things that I definitely recommend, especially your listeners in this age group, is 3 omega oils. Great for the white matter in the brain. Vitamin D3 is a must to take. Concentrates helps resonate the cellular vibration throughout your body, and it also helps detoxify the minerals out of the body. It's actually called concentrates, comes out of the Great Salt Lake, and you just put in your drink. And so 3 omega D3, the concentrates, are the main ones that I will take that on a daily basis. Now I do have my detox mix that has all the algae in it and all that stuff, but for the most part, it's if I stay on that, it gives you clarity. The great thing about 3 omega oils, it decalcifies your pineal gland, which is in the middle of your head, for clarity. And so if you're eating a lot of corn syrup, you're eating a lot of preservatives and GMO foods, you start to calcify that higher cognitive. And so the 3 omega oils are really good. And the one I use is from Costco called Red Creole oil. It's really good.
Okay, well, good. Insurance companies always ask about your family health whenever you're filling out anything, right? How important is your family health to your own health?
It's just a marker to look at, but just because my grandpa died of diabetes doesn't mean I have to be diabetic. And in my book, I talk about the neighborhood mind. What is interesting is 85% of your developable makeup it happens before the age of 7. So you go back 7 generations and you take all the emotional components from these ancestors and you pick and choose, am I angry, am I worried, am I paranoid, am I these, and you take this ancestor and that ancestor and you put it into this body of yours. That's your makeup. And what's determined that is your environment or your neighborhood. So religion, government, social, and so all this makeup is kind of makes you, but you still have 15% to choose what to do. And so even though I was raised on a farm and my grandpa did die of diabetes, my dad died of a heart attack, doesn't mean I have to have a heart attack, and doesn't mean I have to be diabetic. And so family history is important. And I think on more of a cancerous type level, the markers that they're finding, but still with cancer, if you can keep good health and keep the fat cells down, then you're not having these toxins stored in the fat cells. And so even to that component, I think that yes, you can live out your life, and we're all going to die one day, but that's depressing. I think so many of us are worried about dying that we forget how to live. And so yeah, I there's a lot to it. I explain it more in the book. It's just a kind of newer concept out there, but if you can curtail your emotions and definitely read what you're eating. I tell people, read the label. If you can't read it, don't eat it. And if you can't pronounce it, it's not food. And if it tastes good, spit it out. So that's my
like, oh, I'm gonna have to give up my Reese's. Oh, I love Reese's. They have all the bad stuff. All the bad stuff.
Yeah. So
luckily I don't eat too many of those. Well, yeah, if you don't mind, we're starting to get close to the end here. So I do want to make sure and be cognizant of your time. And I want to switch to a little bit of philosophical questions now, if you don't mind. Is there anything that you would like to see, like fast forward 20 years? If you're 20 years older and you're looking back, what would you like to be considered like absolutely absurd by this time or completely gone? Like you're 20 years ahead of the time, you're looking back and saying, man, I can't believe we used to do, X. What do you think that would be?
The one thing that comes to mind right off the bat is vaccinations.
Hmm.
And this may get me in trouble, but I'm not a experimental rat.
Mm-hmm.
I am a human being that has earthly DNA and spiritual DNA. And I am here to think, to help. And so with these vaccines that they're really been pushing out,
Mm-hmm.
that's still in the experimental trial, I think people have forgot that 20 years from now, I hope that they have curtailed that, and when they look back on some of the damage that's been done, that will change, because it's hard for me to see the effect of what's happening, and you don't hear a lot of that. So I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know with my own self, and I write a little bit about it in the book, but ever since I had some of the childhood shots, that's where my health started. I mean, that's where my asthma came on, that's where my allergies came on, and a lot of things. And so people say, well, you can't point it to that. Well, yeah, I can, because it happened shortly after that, and there's probably some other environmental issues. But I'm not against vaccines if they're done properly and right. But
Mm-hmm.
sorry to open up that kind of discussion, but you asked the question, so
yeah, that's what happens. Yeah. So what would you say is some of the best advice that you've ever received in your life?
I've had a lot of advice throughout the years, but the one that really stood out was get out of bed. And when I had trained so hard to make the varsity basketball team, and I went to school, I was going to look at the list, and my name was not on the list. I was cut. And I mean, I would run miles and miles on dirt roads to wear out a rubber basketball. I would be out on the dirt court with my 4x6 plank shooting foul shots all night.
Mm-hmm.
I lived, died, ate basketball. That's all I did in high school. I just loved it. And to be cut was devastating to me. And so I went home, got into bed, pulled the covers over my head, and just so happened my mom was there, and she says, get out of bed. Don't let somebody define who you are, or an event define who you are. And so I went back to school and happened to sit in the same class as the coach. And I just sat there. It was the hardest thing I had to do. But that simple lesson, get out of bed, has helped me through college, has helped me through medical school, has helped me through a horrific divorce I went through 2 years ago. It was a surprise to me, things like that, because all I want to do is get back in bed and pull the covers over my head. But I have to realize that event, that person, what they said to me, did not define who I am. And so I'd have to say, get out of bed.
Well, Michael Jordan was cut from his basketball team too.
Yeah, right. Well, my name is Glen Robison, but the big dog from Purdue that went #1. But yeah, he has a little more talent than I do. So.
Yep. So where would one begin if they wanted to get their nutrition and lifestyle right with you? How would they be able to reach out?
I would say get the book, pick up the book and start reading, and then that would direct you to my website, Live It Lifestyles with an S at the end. And you can get on there right now, and if you're diabetic, you can get on there and print out the diabetic diet. If you feel cold, fatigued, tired, you can get on there and print out the immune diet. If you're athletic and you just like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me, get on the website, print out the whole life diet and look at it. Because what it is a pick and choose. You're not put in a box like most diets that are short-lived for 6 months. And it changes from day to day. So there's a list of what to eat. There's a list of what to avoid. And there's some so things, but you can pick and choose. And that's the way they're set up, and it's been very productive. And
okay.
So I would say that I'm also on Instagram. You can tag me. I said, I always take pictures of my patients that buy the book and some quotes and all that stuff on Healthy Dad. I think it's Healthy Dad on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. Since I'm in the developmental stage of trying to get this going, and what I'm hoping to do is get a YouTube channel going and start putting some interviews and this information out there. I think I have 18 years of stuff. I just have to sit down and read from what my Healthy Dad has taught me that needs to be out there. And the book is just only the tip of the iceberg. So it's in the making. So be patient, but buy the book, not to put, and then I said, get the book, however you want to do it. Just the information is in there that will really help you in some form or manner.
Yeah. Go to asknate@retirementrescueradio.com. And if you left a review on our podcast, whether that's through iTunes or whatever podcast, however you get your podcasts, you can go there, leave the review, take a, copy and paste that into the email with your address, and we'll end up sending that a copy of that book to you. And we'll just send them out until they're gone. In addition to that, are there any other, personal habits that you would say that you have that have contributed to your success?
I'm going to say there's 4 things.
Yep.
Ask questions. If you're not asking a question, you're not participating. And that's a key factor for me. When a patient starts asking questions, I know they're engaged. If they don't ask, don't tell. So but those that ask questions will be greatly blessed with a plethora of knowledge. And whether you agree with what I say or not, or whoever you come in contact with, that's your choice. And that's great because you can encapsulate it and make that choice for yourself. The other one is observe, look around, be more observant, be more aware of what's going on and around you, be more observant of the food you're eating, read the labels. The third one is fall down on your knees and always give thanks to the guy above that, for the success of that day, even though you may not see success, but you got up, you breathed air, you stood vertical, you were able to go to. But there's a scripture that says nothing does offend God, nor is his wrath kindle, except those who do not confess his hand in all things. Basically, all God wants to hear from you is thank you. He wants to hear that. He wants to say, hey, look, he was a part of your life that day. And then the last one, don't take life serious. It'll kill you. You got to learn to laugh and not take your life serious and love yourself so you can love those around you, and just don't take life serious.
Don't take life too seriously. None of us make it out of here alive.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Any other parting piece of advice or guidance that you'd like to leave my listeners?
Well, I hope this was beneficial to your listeners. There may be some things that are really, they're like, oh, what's this guy talking about? Mm-hmm. There's one thing that I took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. Mm-hmm. So everything I mentioned in there, in this discussion in the book, I have actually done myself. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to help. And so if it doesn't ring true to you, that's okay. And but there's some items in the book, in this discussion, that could help. And like I say, enjoy your retirement. Go and enjoy life. Mm-hmm. It is meant to be enjoyed.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Dr. Glen, thank you so much for coming on board here and imparting some of your wisdom. I think you're going to help rescue some retirements in the form of, helping people get their nutrition right, maybe fix some of the ailments that have been that they've been dealing with, and possibly get off some of those medications that some people are on.
Yeah.
Some people are on multiple, and this one is causing this issue. So now they've got another piece of medication for that side effect. And so once again, we don't have those side effects, or we don't have those issues because we have a lack of whatever pill is, in our body. It's going back to the root, possibly nutrition.
Just a word of caution. I say, if you're on a lot of medications, follow closely with your doctor. I tell my diabetics, look, this is what's going to happen, but you really got to follow with your doctor, because when your sugars start to come down, you're going to have to curtail that drug medication. And so, instead of taking, I've seen patients up to 25 medications, and it's like their entire diet of the day. and I don't know how they're surviving. But I see it classically. One medication will cause this symptom, and then this symptom, and this symptom. And before you know it, you're, oh my heavens. So definitely follow closely with your doctor is my highly recommendation. Just don't come off it.
Oh yeah.
But if you follow the things in the book, you're going to need to follow closely with your doctor, because things will start happening.
Yeah, it's like I tell people when I'm doing speaking events, is like, don't take any information that I'm saying here today and use that and run out and make a financial decision. It's like, don't make a health decision without consulting somebody that actually knows or can figure out your specific situation. Don't just get off of whatever medications you are cold turkey and go on one of the diets. It's like, talk to Glen first before you do any of that. So, all right. Well, that's it. Thank you so much. And Glen, you enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. Thank you. You too.